Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb, and we are wrapping up Awesomely Bad Horror Month. We are going to be talking about Terrorvision, but before we get to that, do like we always do, and Caleb, have you been watching anything good?
So even with the holiday weekend, I have nothing. I have nothing. I did nothing.
No, I get
Um,
that.
yeah, we talked about that a little bit before we started recording. I don't even think I got to watch the another Fallout episode, which is rather disappointing. So it was just a couple of episodes of Bob's Burgers before I would go to bed at night. So
Rock.
yeah, I'm not very useful. So, but I mean, honestly, quick note on Bob's Burgers. I'm kind of surprised I never really wound up watching. Have you ever watched Bob's Burgers?
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes here and there.
Okay, I'm a little surprised I never really got into it sooner. Just with Family Guy and American Dad and Rick and Morty and those shows that I've watched. Because it's definitely better than I anticipated. So it's been a
Oh,
good
Rock.
good change of pace. But that's all I got.
Oh, yeah, my viewing hasn't been very much either. We were so swamped this past weekend. And then, getting back in the swing of work, I took a day off to take my daughter on her field trip. So that took up most of my day. Like I had to squeeze in the movie this week at like the last second. So other than Terrorvision, we've watched some more Grey's Anatomy, but my wife's been like sleeping, like falling asleep earlier. Like she's just worn out because it's towards the end of the year and she's a teacher. So when she falls asleep, I watch King of the Hill. I've watched quite a bit of that. And I've also played Wreckfest a fair amount on the Switch. I talked about it last week. It's a racing game with like junky cars and there's like some gimmick stuff in it. I had like oh geez, like an RV demolition derby.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then like school bus demolition derbies, I think are a bit the two wackiest things I've done on there so far in the past week. And then before we started recording, I was watching the new um, documentary series on HBO Max. It's called Fallen Idols, and it's about Nick and Aaron Carter. Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, then Aaron Carter's younger brother, and
Yeah, I
it's
know
just
nothing about the Backstreet Boys, so but I know what you're talking about now.
yeah, just like how there's like allegations coming out of sexual misconduct and stuff like that, and it's talks about their life and like I don't know, exposing them for different things. And Aaron Carter passed away, I think last year or 2 years ago, and he had like a lot of mental health issues. So it's been pretty interesting. I can't remember how many parts it is, but we just started the third episode before I came up to do the podcast. So see how that goes. But that's pretty much it. I've been listening to um the audiobook of Stephen King's It,
Okay.
and man, one of the chapters was 4 hours long.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a freaking long book. Like it's 1,000-page book, I think. But
Gosh.
yeah, that's been pretty good too. And I also, listening to that, I learned that you only get a certain allotment of listening hours on Spotify for audiobooks. I reached that the other day, so I had to wait like a couple days before I could listen to more, which is
Yeah.
weird. I don't know why you don't just get as much as you want. What does it matter?
Hmm.
But that's all I've got. So let's talk about Terrorvision. Terrorvision is from 1986 and is directed by Ted Niccolo. The plot is Terrorvision is a 1986 horror science fiction movie telling the tale of a family's new satellite system starts receiving signals from another planet and soon becomes the passageway of an alien world. That is a terrible plot, and I pulled that right from IMDb.
That is a pretty messed up plot.
Yeah, that's definitely not even fully encapsulate what's happening. The cast is Diane Franklin as Susie, Mary Warrenov as Raquel, Garrett Graham as Stan, Chad Allen as Sherman, John Grease as OD, Burt Ramson as Grandpa, Alejandro Ray as Spiro, Randy Brooks as Cherry, Jennifer Richards as Medusa, Sonny Carl Davis as Norton, Ian Patrick Williams as Nutkey, William Paulson as Pluthar, and John Lemur as the chauffeur. And that is like every single actor in this movie.
That's everybody.
Yeah, it's a small cast, so I figured I would just name everybody.
Yeah.
This is a
So,
movie that I've seen a few times. Like probably like five, I think.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Shocker, first time watch. So,
Yeah.
groundbreaking news.
Is this the first time you ever heard of this movie?
I believe so.
I kind of figured it's more of a cult movie.
Did I see that there was like a TV show or something
Oh,
called Terrorvision?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Cuz Terrorvision sounds familiar from something. I don't know exactly what, but definitely nothing from this movie stood out to me on being like, "Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
recognize that." But just the name kind of stands out for some reason. It's a decent name.
Yeah. I think the first time I heard of this movie was on Cinemassacre's Monster Madness one year,
Mhm.
and they did like a quick, maybe 5, 10 minute video on it. I think it was the year where he did all 80s movies. And I'm like,
Okay.
this movie sounds really wacky and I need to watch it.
Yeah.
And then I hunted it down. I don't even know how I got my hands on it the first time. Um, They might even have been through Netflix DVD
Oh, nice.
back in the day. But yeah, it's a movie I've seen a couple times and it's just really goofy and off the wall.
Yeah, they totally lean into it and some of it um what would I say lands or some of it fits and some of it doesn't.
Yeah, it some of it's kind of slapstick.
Mhm.
And then there's like these crazy gore scenes and the ridiculous monster.
Yes. The monster has to be one of the it's to me it's one of the worst things of the movie.
Really? I think the monster's amazing.
Okay, because I that's why I kind of hesitated where I was just like I kind of feel like some people might like it, but I'm just kind of like I had in my notes I was like really like you want to come up with the monster and that's like what you come up with and I don't know it was just weird it was weird. I guess
I think it's an interesting monster because it looks like a bunch of random pieces they had laying around and just sewed them together. And then he's covered with slime and snot.
I mean I guess props to for kind of like originality kind of
Yeah.
because there was nothing that really made sense. It was like a blob with one big eye, one small eye, and then it had like an extension that had another eye on it, and
Yeah.
then it had the claw.
Yep.
So, I
And
mean,
its enormous mouth.
yeah, never really seen anything quite like it. So, kudos.
I thought it looked like if the thing showed up on Sesame Street, and that's the creature that it created.
Okay,
You
I can
know,
see
like
that.
it makes like a whole bunch of the Muppets together in like this big slimy gooey mess because it's like a similar color as the thing.
Hmm. Well,
And there's just like pieces of all these different monsters together. Like it kind of looks like Cookie Monster, but it also kind of looks like the oh those alien things that are like yep 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 yep
oh
all the
yeah.
time. Yeah,
Um, I find this really hilarious because I could imagine anyone listening to this not having seen the movie trying to understand what we're describing.
yeah.
The thing, what came to mind for me, and I'm gonna say this very loosely, so don't, if no one's ever seen it, would be very entertained to know um their thoughts from listening to this and then actually looking up a picture of this thing. But what came to mind as something loosely similar would be from Spaceballs Pizza the Hut.
Oh yeah, yep. I get it. I
So
can
I
see
mean like
that.
more so just kind of that because this thing was slimy and wet and uh
Just
gr-
messy as heck.
yeah, just gross and looking at it makes you think that it stinks. So
Yeah, like it just constantly smells like swamp and farts.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got from it too. I thought the effects of the creature were pretty solid.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it looked like it was a living creature more than just like, an enormous puppet.
Yeah, definitely can give credit to that. And I don't know, it's just like maybe saying it was the worst thing was a little harsh, but just like I don't know. I literally did have it in my notes though, where I was just like, really, like you're making this horror kind of movie, and this is the monster that you think up for this. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, I don't know what the budget for this movie was, but probably the next thing that stood out to me as being cheesy or you know sticking out like a sore thumb was just outside in the night sky. It
Yeah, it was
was
definitely done on stage.
yeah, it was definitely like staged and all that stuff. And so it's just like, okay, whatever, that's fine. Lean into it. You're making this little kind of smaller, low budget horror movie. But I think those were the two things that stuck out to me the most on just being like, this is kind of weird. Because okay, here's a great comparison. The other alien thing, Pluthar,
Yeah.
I thought he was done really well.
Yeah, he
And
looked like something that would have been like in Star Wars or Star Trek or something.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I thought he turned out really well. His stuff was good and was kind of like, a typical kind of alien thing. So, I mean, I guess kind of maybe when you look at it from the idea of I don't know why I'm actually kind of shocked I didn't have the thing pop into my mind like it did for you.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. It was certainly quirky and left an impression. I'll give him that.
Yeah, the idea and looks of the monster kind of reminded me of this 1950s monster movie called The Creeping Terror, which
Okay.
is the story with that is that they made oh the creator of the movie like had the apparently this really cool looking monster created and then someone stole it
Oh,
and
geez.
then at like the last minute he had to like throw something together and I think they like got a whole bunch of different carpet samples
Oh no.
and like sewed them together and so like this it's like this big furry almost like slug or something and it's horrible looking.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
so
just like a
sad.
hodgepodge of a bunch of different pieces and that's kind of what this reminded me of except I feel like this one was done pretty well where it's supposed to be kind of goofy and look like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of goofy things in this, more than just the monster. I had that this house is bonkers and it's just like the 1980s on steroids.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and like hypersexualized.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the parents are like these super horned up swingers, and like they have this, state of the art satellite system that the dad hooks up, and he's doing like his dad flex and going through all the channels, and he comes to like this porn channel and he leaves it on there, and like the kids are like, "Oh my God." And like the boy's probably what, 12,
Something like that, maybe.
10 or 12, and he's like channel 69. Oh, why that always makes me laugh. Um, and they got like a room that's got this huge jacuzzi in it, and there's like these um
The
kind of
artwork.
like abstract
Yeah.
paintings all over the place, but they're all like boobs and stuff like that. And there's one of them that's just a big iron that has boobs on it.
Well, I think for visual reference it would be pop art
Yeah.
is probably the style that it was. So, yeah, totally. I mean, the whole entire like even the sculptures in the house. Like they had some of those Greek Roman type goddess sculptures, but then they had water coming out of the boobs and
Yeah.
it was just like
Next to this more abstract figure of a woman, but the boobs are realistic. It's like a weird mesh of styles. And then there's Patrick Nagel paintings as well,
yeah.
which if you don't know what those are, people listening, think of like the cover of Rio by Duran Duran. That was a Patrick Nagel painting.
Yeah,
I,
so the setting is weird and the whole thing takes place at the house or
mm,
outside the front of the house. So not a lot of different scenes.
oh,
And
one scene that we see outside is the dad's car has a license plate on it that says Mr. Cool.
yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
Yeah. And it just man, so geez, I don't even know really where to dive in. I mean, you got, as you said, well, okay, we didn't really even, or maybe you mentioned it, like the parents are like super like horny swinger type people.
Yeah.
And then they've got a son and a daughter. Of course, the daughter's dating a guy.
And she's a total Valley girl.
Yeah.
And I've
And
seen this movie multiple times and didn't realize it was Diane Franklin. She was in a lot of stuff in the 80s. Last American Virgin is one of them, which is the movie's got one of the biggest gut punch endings ever in a teen movie. Um, God, I feel like she was also in something with John Cusack, but continue with what you're saying.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh yeah, she was in that as well. She was one of the
Um, yeah.
she was in Better Off Dead. She was the foreign exchange student in Better Off Dead.
Oh, nice. But so the main characters are the parents, the brother and sister. The brother is basically like buddies with the grandpa, who's like an old war vet, crazy
Yeah, and he's
bonkers guy.
obsessed with everything military.
Yeah. And then the girl is dating, a total high school douchebag, OD, which by the way, OD is hilarious because it makes me think of The Office. And when
Oh, D.
she whispered in my ear, OD. And but the even funnier thing about that is, and I was a little surprised that I recognized it immediately, but OD was played by none other than Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
I know. I looked at the notes when the movie started, just like kind of scanned over them, and I saw that. I'm like, what? I'm like, because I've seen this movie multiple times and never picked up on that.
Yeah, he definitely looks quite a bit different with it being so much younger and also his crazy hair.
Yeah.
But one of his facial expressions when you get introduced to the character, I was just like, no way. Usually I don't usually I try not to look at IMDb just to like not like see anything and get spoiled by anything.
Right.
But I had to look it up right away and I was like, "Oh, there it is right there."
Yeah, Uncle Rico. Oh gosh. Yeah, and he's your stereotypical 80s metalhead. He's got the poodle hair and he's wearing a Wasp t-shirt the whole time.
Mhm.
Also, Wasp is has a is shown in this movie when they're going through the stations on the TV. They
Oh
stop
yeah.
on what's supposed to be MTV, and you can see Blackie Lawless from Wasp in it, which Wasp is awesome. I listen to them quite a bit.
Nice. Well, yeah, it this might be kind I don't know if you would have seen it all, but there was one scene and he was making some weird faces and with the hair, his hair how it was, he honestly kind of looked a little like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, because he's got kind of that weird shaped mouth too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you
So,
can even see that as Uncle Rico, that he's got kind of a weird shaped mouth,
mhm.
throwing footballs over mountains.
Or making extremely terrible metal music.
Yes. Oh gosh. Speaking of the music,
Dude,
the intro song was awesome.
oh yeah, dude, I was so pumped up when the music hit. I was just like, dude, this could be amazing.
I love that miniature set they show right before the music of the other planet. It
Yeah,
reminded me of old Godzilla movies. Like it was crappy, but in the best kind of way.
yeah, that is,
You could tell that someone put a lot of work into that, but just the way it was lit and
yeah, it
I
didn't,
don't know.
uh, I don't know the best way to explain it, but it's just like, you're absolutely right. Like somebody did a good job with it, but there was some factor that would have taken it from good to great, like the lighting and something else. I don't, maybe, maybe the detail and the paintwork.
Yeah,
But just something was there was a barrier between breaking it from the good level to great level, and it just wasn't quite there. But I mean, like, definitely props. And honestly, I think it was probably better that it wasn't super amazing because it just fit right in with the whole mood of the movie.
yeah. It's definitely not a movie that you're supposed to take seriously.
Oh
It's just a
no.
fun, wacky horror comedy.
Oh, by the way, do you think that they were like had any sponsorship or anything with Heineken? What was up with that?
It's possible because how many times did they show Heineken's and mention Heineken's?
Yeah.
And I'll go on record saying Heineken sucks. Anytime I've ever had one, it's really skunky tasting.
Um,
It's not good.
though, well, and then they were on a kick of calling it Heine all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, yeah, which is the nickname for Heineken.
Oh yeah,
But
but oh, what was it? I was gonna say something else with that. It just seems. So wait, what did they say? What year it was supposed to be? Because it
I
was
don't think so.
the '80s take on a
Yeah,
futuristic thing.
yeah, I feel like didn't they show like the date or something like that? I don't
I can't.
remember.
I can't remember now, but I was just kind of thinking like, oh yeah, Heineken is going to be around for thousands of years to come.
It's still around and still drank quite a bit for I don't know how skunky it is.
Yeah,
Maybe if I got one in Holland, where it comes from, and it was like fresh from the brewery, maybe it's not skunky. I
served
don't know.
warm.
Yeah, served warm. Oh, warm skunk. Hooray. Yeah, maybe then it would be better. But yeah, I noticed that this time too, like how many times Heineken was shown on a screen.
Hmm.
I One thing I really like about this movie is that so Sherman, the young boy, during the entire movie is watching like this late night horror host named Medusa, who is an obvious nod to Elvira,
Oh yeah,
like all the way down to like, a little bit on how she talks and like makes fun of people, and then also the massive gaping cleavage,
that they
which
zoomed
is
in on one time in the show.
yeah. I remember that in Monster Madness they said that Medusa nearly outboobed Elvira, but I like how every once in a while they'll show the TV and there's a different like 50s and 60s black and white sci-fi and monster movies showing on there,
Hmm.
including the giant claw, which I've talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah, I thought
The
that was it.
weird giant bird. Um, Earth versus the Flying Saucers is another one. Robot Monster, which I believe might have been the first one they showed. Um, yeah, they're watching the Robot Monster, which is a notoriously bad movie. I've only seen bits and pieces of that one. That might have to be on our list sometime because I've heard it's really horrible. Um, yeah, we should do like an awesomely bad where it's all like older movies.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we could totally get
Uh,
a month like that.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was just fun seeing all those, and those are probably all in the public domain or like super cheap to get the rights to.
Oh yeah.
So doesn't surprise me. Earth versus the Flying Saucers was probably the best of the bunch of movies because um, that was done. The special effects were done by Ray Harryhausen, who was like the biggest name in special effects back then. He did all stop motion stuff. Like he did the Sinbad movies, like with the warrior skeletons. You ever see
Oh
those?
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he did that kind of stuff. He worked with the dude who did the original King Kong. That's who he learned from. But yeah, his work was amazing. So I always like seeing that kind of stuff sprinkled in through movies.
Rock.
Yeah. Uh, so like the what makes the it's so funny. What makes the monster show up is the dad sets up the satellite, and then of course it gets struck by lightning because that's not overdone. It's always lightning. And then there's lightning that shoots from the TVs, and you go haywire, and that's when the monster like shows up. And he can show up in any room that has a TV. And apparently this house has like 8 TVs in it.
Yeah, and I love the fact that their like special big TV is like 18, what would you say, 18 inches or something?
Maybe. And then in his pleasure dome room that they bring the swinging couple back in, um, with the huge hot tub, their TV is maybe like 13 inch. And it's like into the wall. It reminds me of The Office where Michael Scott's got his plasma screen TV on the wall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I could just stand here for hours and watch this. Uh, yeah, they didn't even have like a big projection screen TV or anything that were big in the 80s.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh. So when like the monster kills people, it's pretty like grotesque. And I'm trying to figure out the whole time like what he actually does. So a lot of times he takes the claw thing
Hmm.
and like when he kills Grandpa and like pinches his head, it's green slime starts coming from Grandpa's head, and then all of a sudden he falls into like a heap on the ground, and then a monster slurps it up. So it's almost like he melts him with acid and then just slurps it up the slop, and like
Yeah.
all the clothes and stuff are left there on the ground.
Yeah, and so there's no body, there's just like puddle of slime,
Yeah, and
guts,
like yeah, just gunk.
and anything that's not digestible. So like metal and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to explain. Because then when he kills OD, well, this is after they make friends with the monster, after he kills the parents, and the kids aren't fully aware of it yet.
Yeah, because he kills Grandpa, and the kid Sherman knows that he killed Grandpa, and then, or he's fairly certain because Grandpa disappears, and then it kills the swingers, and then it
Hmm.
kills the parents, but
Yeah.
then it can mimic.
Yeah, it's like can control their heads basically.
Yeah.
And
And
then
so,
it, yeah, like mimics them. That's what made me think of the thing as well.
hmm
And like you
so
can use their voices and stuff. But
yeah, and so they think that possibly everyone's still alive, and then they make friends with the monster.
yeah, because they're like, oh man, we can make a lot of money with this monster. Because
Make
he's
it.
obviously like some alien creature that no one else knows about. And he's like obsessed with eating and watching TV. And then he won't stop bugging OD to put TV back on because he doesn't like the commercials. And OD like hits him and it's his knocking off butthole or something like that. And then that's when the monster kills OD.
Yeah.
And then the kids start freaking out. Yeah, like he eats OD's face off first, basically.
Yeah.
Oh. Um, and then like a cop finally shows up because Sherman's called the cops a couple times, and I think he's just playing like a prank. So they come over to like they're gonna like arrest him, and he's a kid. But then the cop gets killed by the monster, and throughout the movie too, we see like this alien talking into the TV, and they turn the volume up, and he's like. It's like, I'm issuing a warning for all Earthlings, like, destroy your satellites and communication devices. There's basically like a monster on the loose, and that was when they finally realized that what this thing was saying, like, it wasn't a movie, it was an actual, like, communication.
hmm
And that's when he shows up, that Pluthar shows up, and he's like the good alien, and he's telling them, like, the monster's called a hungry beast.
And it's essentially a pet.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, if I can somehow get it back to my planet unscathed, which is going to be next to impossible, then you can have your parents and your grandpa and OD back. He's like, but they'll have to be like they'll have to live in the water or something like that.
Yeah, they'll have to be like incubated or some weird
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And then so they're like, okay, well that's kind of the plan. And then it's like we're gonna uh try to get this monster back, and he was sent there to destroy it. But also, when Sherman was calling the cops and they weren't listening to him, he called Medusa and was like, I got this monster, like you have to come here and see it. And they're trying to like get her to put it on their show after a while. And she finally shows up, and it's right after the alien guy shows up. And she sees him, freaks out, hits him in the head, and it like cracks a space helmet, and then he dies. That always cracks me up because it's like, oh, I'm here to save you.
Dude, and then his head blew up. That was like a really good scene.
Yeah.
They did a really good job with that one.
Yeah, and then it kind of craps to bed because the monster blows through the wall, and then Sherman gets sucked towards the monster, and then the screen goes black. And then in the next scene, Medusa's back in her car and tells the chauffeur to like take her back to the studio or something. And it's the monster controlling Medusa's head.
Yeah, it's very obvious. It's the monster.
Yeah.
Well, something that we didn't talk about is how I find it funny that they kept using guns and even like grenades to try to hurt the monster, and nothing showed that was effective. Like no gunshot wounds, no nothing. Like it didn't even really phase the monster, it just made it mad.
Yeah. But they kept trying it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So good on that.
I guess a couple things that stood out to me. Uh, we talked about how the monster pretend to be like the parents and grandpa and stuff. When the kids go looking for him and they find like the parents in bed with Cherry and Spiro,
Swingers,
and
yeah.
they're like, oh my God, and um, they're like, oh, everything's okay, and uh, all of a sudden, Grandpa pops up in the middle of them, and they're like, oh, like, gross, Grandpa. That cracked me up too. Uh,
Yeah, they had a couple things kind of like that.
Another thing too that made me laugh that I just noticed this time was when Susie and OD come back from their date, and they walk through the door and Sherman freaks out. He's got like a assault rifle on him. And he points the gun at OD, and then he turns and points it at Susie. And then he puts it back at OD, and then OD like takes his hand and nudges the gun over to point at Susie again.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that cracked me up. That's the first time I noticed that.
Well, even earlier than that, though, when he and his grandpa got the guns out and they were like searching for the monster because they saw it come through the TV or whatever,
Yeah.
um, they were both pointing their guns at each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, come on, like, does no one understand proper gun etiquette? Like, supposedly, if you're a military guy, you gotta be better than that.
Yeah. It was just point weapons at each other. Real guns. Uh, and I guess we usually try to like find something that's really bad with the movie. I guess if you're gonna go like the whole movie itself is goofy enough that it can be considered bad, and the acting is super hammy.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of the movie that it is, so I don't know if you can really consider that bad or good.
I think for all the movies this month, that this is the most legit um awesomely bad movie
Yeah, I would say so.
because it's not meant to be serious and it's being so ridiculous that it's bad. I would say like um in that category of awesomely bad though, so it's the entertainment bad
Yeah,
or the entertaining bad, I guess I should say. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah.
Um, Anything else you got to talk about? Or do you want me to get into the trivia and facts?
I think we're ready for trivia and facts.
Okay. So the director and production designer actually scouted swingers pads in Los Angeles in order to get an idea for the Putterman household.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I don't
This
think they
movie
needed to
was
get that deep into detail and
right. This movie was actually pulled from theaters after only 4 days.
ooh,
Yeah, because it did so poorly.
no.
The poster for this movie was designed before the script was actually written,
Okay.
which the poster is just like the satellite and there's like an alien eye on it, pretty much. So I guess it didn't really matter too much. So the brief MTV clip shown is the Wasp singing a song called Tormentor, is lifted from the movie The Dungeon Master, and the character OD wears a Wasp t-shirt throughout the movie. Um, the movie The Dungeon Master was produced by Charles Band, who produced this movie as well.
Rock.
There's a British rock band called Terrorvision that took their name from this movie.
Oh gosh. Nice.
Uh, no, this is a person, but Lux Interior and Frank Zappa were both considered to compose the score,
Okay.
which I can kind of see Frank Zappa, and he's got some wacky music. In the prologue, a model of the USS Enterprise from Star Trek can be seen upside down and missing its engines, and it was painted to look like a building on the planet Pluton.
Dude, I actually thought that it kind of looked like a Star Trek ship. That is hilarious.
Uh, So when Susie introduces the monster to music, her arm is resting on the top of Sanyo's first CD player ever made. It is the DAD-8, which was made between 83 and 84 and is sought out by collectors for its rarity and quality of sound.
Huh.
So the director wanted to originally cast Mary Warrenoff as Medusa, and Harry Shearer was considered to play Stan. Harry Shearer has done tons of stuff. He's the voice of Homer Simpson.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
was also in Oscar, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. And then Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's was originally um in the running to portray Susie, which would have been interesting. John Grease wore a wig when he did his audition for OD.
Rock.
This is the theatrical debut of Chad Kelly, who played Sherman,
Okay. I mean, he
which he
did
did a
decent.
decent job for his first movie.
Yeah.
This film was shot back to back with Empire Pictures' Troll in Italy at the Stambilamenti Cinematografici Pontini Studios near Rome. Many of the same crew worked on both productions, including the creature effects designer John Carl Buechler.
Wait, so all these people went to Italy to film this movie?
I guess, yeah.
That's interesting.
Cinematographer Romano Albani and composer Richard Band. The two films were released a month apart from each other in the United States.
Oh.
And if it wasn't for Troll, we wouldn't have Troll 2. Last thing I got. I don't have a budget for this movie, but it only made $320,000 in the box office.
That's interesting. Usually you don't have the box office. You have the other way around.
Yeah, my guess is this movie might have cost like $1 million to make because of the special effects. And John Carl Buechler was kind of a big deal. He's done special effects for tons of movies.
Hmm. Want to know some kind of crazy?
What's that?
The oh shoot, what's his name? Spiro,
Hmm.
character guy. He died the next year.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he died in 1987.
Huh. This
So
is his swan song.
yeah, so I'm just like clicking through a couple things and I saw that he died in
Uh,
87. So I was like, oh snap.
well, dang. So grades. IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, what are they?
Right. IMDb. Oh, 3.4.
5.5.
What? No.
This movie has a cult following, so I'm not really surprised.
But
It's
still,
kind of sought after too, like in VHS collecting.
I
I've
weird.
actually been looking for it on Betamax, and the only one I can find on eBay, the person wants $100 for it, and I just laughed. I'm like, yeah, it ain't gonna happen, dude. I'll let somebody else pay that much for it.
um, Rotten Tomato critic 40%.
Oh, it's 10.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Rotten
audience,
audience has got to be higher than that. So 29.
44.
Oh, big jump there.
Yeah. And then our grades. You want to go first this time?
Um, sure. I'm kind of trying to figure out what I don't know. I'm usually not prepared for what my ratings are going to be because I kind of
I can go
just
first then if you need me to.
no, that's okay. I usually kind of like talk through and then kind of figure out usually between two because it's like I said, this really is probably the best example of awesomely bad for this month.
Yeah.
Um and it's fun. It's something that is definitely rewatchable.
Hmm.
Um So again, my grades usually reflect that on the whole concept of um what this movie is meant to be and taken for in its own category and everything. Because I mean, honestly, if we're comparing this to other movies, other great horror movies, like this wouldn't even come close. Um, so even though I had kind of my weird takes on, or my own personal takes about not being uberly impressed with the route they chose to go with the monster, I mean, it is a comedy. It keeps it consistent throughout the whole movie. It's not trying to win any awards or anything. So for awesomely bad horror movie month, I think it did a really great job. So I am landing at a 4.5.
Rock.
So
Well, dang, you actually have it higher than I do.
okay.
I landed at a 4. It's a movie that I've seen a few times, and it's entertaining and fun. It's also one of those movies, though, I feel like I have to be in the right mood to watch.
Okay.
I mean, and this time I really had fun with it again, so um, I feel like a solid 4 was good. There's other like awesomely bad horror movies that I prefer over this, and I do think it's one of the better horror comedies. There's lots of horror comedy, but none of them seem to land for me too much. And
Hmm.
I just like that this movie doesn't take itself seriously. It's just having fun, and the comedy is intended. There's other movies like the first Evil Dead where everybody's like, "Oh, it's a comedy," and it's like, no, the first Evil Dead was supposed to be like a just a straight up horror movie, and it's just so goofy that it's comedic.
Well,
Where like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are supposed to be comedies as well.
it's just like The Room was intended to be a dark comedy, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so for me, I think a good way to maybe add a little bit to some of what I was saying is like I was between a 4 and 4.5. And the reason why I actually went up to the 4.5 was because I feel like in the category of what this movie is being awesomely bad, it reminds me of things like um, Miami Connection and Deadly Prey, where it is just dumb fun to watch with your friends and
Yeah,
entertaining enough that you can watch it again. Where a lot of the other movies this month, um, they've been all right, they've been good. Some have been dumb, some have been fun, but none of them really connected with those things to really hone in on being awesomely bad. So this I think this one from a horror sense came together as best as possible to those original kind of, no, what would I say, definition of awesomely bad. So
yeah, yeah. And I mean, this movie was produced by Charles Band, who you might not recognize the name, but he's the owner of uh Full Moon, Full Moon Pictures,
okay.
who made like the Puppet Master movies and Ginger Dead Man and like all these ridiculous budget corny um horror movies. So that means he also produced Retro Puppet Master, starring Greg Sestero of The Room,
Hey,
that he did before he did The Room. So he talks about it in that The Disaster Artist book about
we know
doing that movie.
we know
But
that
yeah,
guy.
yeah, good way to tie it around. But next month we're gonna be switching it up a little bit. We're going to be diving into a bunch of movies that Caleb is very fond of. We're going to be doing an entire month of Mad Max movies, which I admittedly have not seen all those movies.
How dare
I've
you?
seen, I feel like it's those kind of movies where I've seen so many parts of it that I've probably seen the whole movie, but I've not sat down and watched the movie from start to finish, like any
Okay.
of them. I saw Mad Max Fury Road for sure, all the way through. So
Rock.
yeah, it'll be more of a newer experience for me. We might even get to cover the newest movie that just came out not too long ago. So we'll see how that goes if all the stars align. But if you guys are liking the show, please like and subscribe. Feel free to share it around. You can follow us on social media. We're on pretty much every platform. We got lots of content coming out, stuff nearly like every single day. So, especially on YouTube. So check that out. Come by next time. We're going to be talking about Mad Max. And until then, as always, be kind and rewind.